All right, hello everyone. It's finally time. Spoiler season is here. Thank you everyone for joining. Sorry about the many false starts on today's stream. It turns out my internet does not like me to be downloading files while streaming at the same time, and I only got back from work with enough time to just barely download the files I needed to make today's stream. But enough technical difficulties. I'm joined by two fantastic guests today, Pouchsurfer and Sanjay, and I will have them very quickly do some introductions for themselves.
Hello, hi everybody. I'm Pouchsurfer, also known as Seba. I'm a tournament organizer and one half of the speedrunning startup champion duo, and I'm very excited to be here today and talk about spoilers.
And I am Sanjay. I am a tournament organizer, and I am one half of the startup speedrunning world record holder champion duo with Pouchsurfer, aka Seba.
It,
We
it's
also make good alt arts.
it's great to have both of you on. Truly, having people with such a prestigious title is a great way to start off the season. Um, but I genuinely, I'm so glad to have you guys both on. You both have a lot to say about Netrunner, and I think it's should be a fun little show. Um, let's see. I want to quickly, for those of people who don't know you, I'll have you guys get started by, and maybe I'll start Sanjay. What is your history with Netrunner?
So I've been playing since the Sand cycle. Very great friend and really good netrunner player Laura Osklet and her partner got me into the game, and I've been enjoying it since then. I've got into competitive netrunner about like a year or two later. I um, have been doing okay at netrunner for like a little bit, and I've been loving the community around it. It's makes me really really happy to be interacting with people on Slack and Green Level Clearance and all the beautiful places that netrunner people are, and in Philadelphia as well, and in Delaware. Yeah.
Cool. And Pouchsurfer, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'm a much greener netrunner player. I've been playing seriously for about a year and a little bit now. The game has sort of come in the periphery of my gaming history before, but very tangentially. I sort of discovered for real the game at PAX Unplugged in Philly, where I live, last year. And by the way, PAX Unplugged is happening very soon, so anyone who's nearby Philly should come check it out. So yeah, I'm really loving the community and I'm loving the game, and it's wonderful to be part of this beautiful group of people.
Yeah, thanks. So, oh, you know what? I'm forgetting to do one thing I'm supposed to be doing, which is sharing the screen so that you guys can see what I'm about to be scrolling to the rest of the stream. So let me get that going. Uh, there we go. Awesome. Okay, well, I would love to keep chatting, but we've got so much to talk about today, including this brand spanking new Jinteki ID. So I will usually start by reading out the card, and then I'll let you two come in with some hot takes. So this ID is Isawak Adaptix. I actually before I even read the text, the art on this card is freaking amazing. Just astounding composition. So props to Emilio Rodriguez, and I also know that there was a lot of work put in on the brief on this card as well. But anyway, standard 4515 identity division in Jinteki. Whenever you score an agenda that you did not install or advance this turn, place one power counter on this identity. For each hosted power counter, you need one less agenda point to win the game. And the flavor text, bringing Mother Nature up to speed.
What a card!
I do want to say before we get too much into the card, the lore for this, if you haven't read it, is stunning. Shoeflower wrote a really good lore piece on this. Read it, check it out. It does like, oh wait, these are the good. because the protagonists are really subtly like not great people, and then it gets a little less subtle. It's beautiful. Anyway,
Yeah, I actually
yeah,
that's a great point, Sanjay. I am doing. I will try and plug all of the creators for these spoilers as they go through because I really like I'm glad people come and talk about these things, but please do also whenever we mention a follower or a creator, I'd really ask you to go and check out their stuff. It's everyone's doing such great work here, and so
yeah, and
definitely
I
go
think
and read their space.
she also wrote the flavor text, bringing Mother Nature up to speed, which is I think she described it as like showing the arrogance of Isuak Adaptix. Um, anyway, mechanics. There's a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah. LK404, thanks for the follow. And then also, I think your comment is great in that says this ID does work even if it never triggers, which I think is a really fun area for an ID to hit. Like just the thread of the ID is going to change the game by putting it down.
Yeah. So like when you think about this, the first thing you want to think about is like how do I score an agenda without installing or advancing it on the turn that I score it? And there's a lot of different answers to that question. One, of course, is something called shell game, where you put your you protect your servers not by saying you can't get in here, but by saying, hey, are you sure you want to get in here? Cerebral Overrider is a card, right? Urtica Cipher is a card, right? You sure you want to access this card? It's got 4 advancements on it. And so that's a great way to say, hey, there's four cards on here. There's 4 advancements on here. It's a 4 to advance agenda. I score it. Yay. Um, Notably, you can score before beginning of turn effects happen. I think it's one of my favorite scoring windows. You can use it with this card. But there's other things you can do with this card. Cards like Seamless Launch or Trick of Light that place advancement counters, but don't advance the card. Will also let you score without installing or advancing a card this turn. Like if you double Seamless Launch a never advanced card, that works. If you It's a little bit more telegraphed, but if you use Vladivisibur's Grid to place 2 counters on it, that works. If you have a mega advanced Plan B and they hit it, that double works because you didn't advance or install it that turn. Yeah. What doesn't work is Regenesis and Lady Liberty. If you don't score it, you place it in your score area. That does not work.
But I think what's interesting in a way is that it doesn't work with the card that you place, but it can work with the Regenesis that you score. And scoring a Regenesis and then adding to your score area a 3-point agenda that was hidden in archives and suddenly being 2 points away from winning the game seems pretty neat. Like thinking about installing a Regenesis and never advancing it, and then I don't know, maybe playing Big Deal if you master to get the money engine techie to play it. And then suddenly you're like from no points to 2 points away from winning the game. That's pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah. I think one thing about this ID that is really exciting to me is that there's a lot of unsolved stuff. Like, what does a agenda complement look like when you don't know? Like, I think when you're building a good deck, you should really be thinking, how do I add up to 7? How do I add up to the way I win? And for this ID, you don't know what number you're necessarily aiming towards. Are you aiming to 7, 6, 5? So what kind of agendas do you put in the deck so that you have that flexibility, so that no matter what number you're aiming towards, you have the exact agenda you want? Or maybe you just play all 5 threes and hope to Isuak one of them.
Yeah. One card that I really like in Isuak, which I think doesn't see a lot of play. Actually, it did see play in, if I'm not mistaken, in the deck that Bridgman brought to Worlds. It's Project Kusanagi, which is a very cheap way for you to try and get your ID to fire. Because sure, if someone steals a 0-point agenda, who cares? But if you manage to score that one out, that's sort of advancing your game plan. It's as if that agenda was a 2-1 in this specific ID. And thinking about, as Sanjay was mentioning earlier, thinking about playing mitosis and throwing cards on the board that might be traps, that might be a Project Kusanagi with 2 advancement counters on it, and then asking the runner to have to make a call and decide whether they want to steal a 0-point agenda or run into a trap that might cut their hand size. That's an interesting game to play.
I love how this idea sort of turns Project Kusanagi from a 2-1, a 2-0 to a 2-1 a little bit if you just advance it in the right way. That's really cool.
Yeah,
and maybe builds towards the all 5/3 deck a little bit more. Yeah, I don't like.
Yeah, I also think there's like some interesting ideas where like, oh, maybe you can play this in a deck with like all 3 2s or something like that, and you can just be a little bit flexible in your scoring plan and scoring pattern.
Yeah, the funny thing about this is that the way we're talking about it sounds just like the way you talked about rotated ID Harmony Medtech, which I really enjoyed, where it just had. I think classically you'd play it with just 5/3s, because Harmony Medtech was this ID that said you only need 6 agenda points to win the game, and you kind of nice, wow, slick. You just pulled that up there. That was nice.
Well,
And
when you guys talk so much, I can set up some really cool things, so it makes my life easier.
And classically, Harmony Medtech, I think the best Harmony Medtech decks historically were 5/3 decks, but you could also be like, I'm just gonna play a bunch of 2-pointers, and either way, my agenda complement adds up to 6 really nicely.
Cool. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on Isawak. I think there's a couple of... So actually, let me... Seamless Launch. The other card that people should probably be aware of is, of course, La Costa Grid. It's going to be a big one, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because this, you can just leave something ticking or install Advance in a server with something, and it's like you could feasibly make a real remote. Like, I think that's one of the interesting things about this idea to me is I think there's plausible play patterns where instead of going shell game, you just go traditional Shinteki and just kind of build up a remote, and now you maybe only try and score 2 agendas, or you score, now you can turn 3 Nisei Mark IIs into 7 points instead of 6, and maybe that's a difference maker kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's one thing with Lacoste. You sometimes see like players who are really advanced. Now, if I have an agenda that I can score, I can't wait. I just put it in my score area as soon as possible. But you do see like players when they know they have a scoring window, they'll just cook an agenda on Lacoste Grid, letting Lacoste do all the work, and like that play pattern works really nicely with this. Now, cooking your Nisei, if you just have Lacoste doing the work, that can be a little scary, but you can put yourself one away with Lacoste. There's a lot of cool lines. Yeah.
I think you can sort of play a sort of shell version of the game that relies only on one strong remote. Have your Lacoste remote be in the one where you throw a card and then you let it advance a bunch of times, and then you have that card be either a Nordica Cipher or a Cerebral Overrider or a Clearinghouse maybe, or an agenda that you're suddenly scoring and going up to 4 points. Well, 3, but then decreasing your needed agenda points. So I think that might be another interesting way to play Isuak, is to sort of have a shell game but relying only on one server. And then there's a commitment to get in, and also, should I get in now?
All right. Do we want to maybe move on to the next card that was spoiled along with Isawak?
Yeah.
Sounds good, yeah.
All right, so we've got Simulation Reset. 1 cost Jinteki Operation. Trash up to 5 cards from HQ. Shuffle that many cards from Archives into R&D. Draw that many cards. Remove this operation from the game. The worst part about failed experiments? The cue for the incinerator. Overheard in the Isawak Adaptix cafeteria.
This flavor test is chilling, and I love it in combination with this. Another wonderful piece of art by Anthony Hutchins here.
Yeah, I will say I don't want to throw shade at like other people, other games even, but like I feel like quotes in general, like, oh, this is a quote from here. Like, it kind of like I don't like it usually, probably because of Magic the Gathering and it being corny when they do it. And this one works. I like it a lot. Also, shout out to the art. This is Anthony Hutchings' second art for no for Netrunner. Also did Regenesis.
Oh,
Um,
that's why this art style looks so evocative. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Regenesis is such a unique looking card. I'm like
Oh
so
yeah.
glad we got Anthony back. This is really cool. I did not
yeah.
realize this. Let me go and pull that up real quick. Um, yeah, cool. I was the one who wrote the brief for this, and I explicitly tried to make it a bit of a clone retirement callback, even though it's not thematically they're not thematically related. But I
Oh
thought it
yeah,
was a
yeah. I mean,
fun.
Clone Retirement is one of the best thematic cards ever, so that was a
Oh
good
yeah.
call. So you wrote the brief for Simulation Reset?
I did, yeah.
It's really good.
It
I
is
Yeah.
love
great.
it.
I also
Also,
owe
like,
I owe Morgan an apology. I did not like this flavor text, but I'm glad to hear that other people really like it. So it's always good to get other perspectives on these things.
I'm always wary about quotes that are like, "Oh, it's a saying," or "Oh, overheard." But I think this one works.
Yeah.
I don't like that format. I like this one.
Very
And
cool.
speaking of the mechanics of this card,
Yes.
I think this card is I think it's incredible. I think this card does so much in just one card. So I think it comes to mind to compare it with genotyping, which is kind of a sort of similar idea. You're trying to do something with archives, but the fact that you can in a pinch do tidying up of your hand, which is what Spin Doctor traditionally is used to do, and at the same time shuffle back cards from archives, and after that draw cards again. The fact that it's like net neutral in the amount of cards that you lose and gain, I I find it incredible. Um, I think that it has a lot of applications. I think especially in Gene Techie, being able to throw away cards you don't need at the moment, shuffle back into your R&D, your copies of Snare, and then drawing cards seems really strong.
Yeah, Ixaran in the chat has a really nice comparison, calling it the red special report. Um, that's really nice. And I think what this card is so modular. The fact that it's trash up to 5 cards is really fascinating. I think in terms of like what can you do with this. The top end, if you have 5 cards you're not fond of and don't mind chilling in archives, you could shuffle 5 cards back. If there's 1 card in your hand you're not, and you want to get it out of there, like if you have 2 agendas and 3 cards you don't like, and there's 3 cards that you want to shuffle back, you can like um, really get your tools back. One thing that's interesting about this card is that um, it doesn't prolong your life as the corp. You're
Yes.
shuffling back as many cards as you draw. I think there's a lot of philosophical talk about Grinder as an archetype, and I think some people don't like Grinder because it draws the game out. And some people don't like Grinder because they don't want to take net damage. They don't really enjoy it. It doesn't make them happy, and they don't want to slow down. And that both are valid. But what's interesting about this card is it doesn't slow the game down because it's saying, hey, this game's taking as long as you thought, but you're going to get all your tools back if you want them. And those agendas that you didn't actually want to score out right now because you're going to win by killing everybody, um, those can go wherever you want, Corp. And so it's an interesting card as a grinder enabler that doesn't make the game go longer. I'm interested to see if it sees play. Um, and it might weaken the alliance between people trying to run tournaments and people who hate net damage in terms of like hating grinder as an archetype.
I just want to do a very quick shout out to Manferrupt calling me out for putting penguins on a card when I'm not a fan of Tag Me. I will say the ox in the brief, because these are actually ox, not just any species, which I think actually are unrelated to penguins. If I'm remembering my quick Wikipedia and quickly from when I wrote the brief for this, those were the way. Yeah. But oh no, okay. they are related to penguins in some fashion. But anyway,
I think they're
um,
closely related to puffins. That's
yeah,
the closest thing.
that would make sense to me.
Oh,
Thank you.
but also a fun thing is that auks are a northern pole bird,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
penguins are a southern pole bird. So if you put penguins on here, you know you're into some weird Jinteki shenanigans because penguins don't live up here.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, you're right. I didn't make a penguin card. This is a great Auk card. So
Yeah, it's an auk card. Get
so
real.
so so no tag me betrayal here. I can stay morally clean and hate tag me and still put great Ox on a card. Um, but no, I
Um,
completely agree. I think this card's really interesting. Um, for that aspect of like, yeah, it's not true. Like, it is definitely enabling for grinder to some extent. Like, hey, turning 3 not snares in my hand into 3 snares in my deck is going to be kind of grinder enabling.
Mhm.
But I think this also has some potential use as just like a, hey, I need to draw 5 cards because these 5 cards aren't going to win me the game right now. Um, and this will just let me draw a whole bunch real quick. Um,
It's sort of a mulligan at any point during the game. It's sort of
yeah.
a free. Oh well, these are not good cards. I'm just gonna get some better ones back into my deck. I really like Sanjay's point that it seems a fairer card compared to preemptive action, for example, where you are like making the game much longer by just um, throwing back cards from archives and not being net neutral in the number of cards that come in and out of your deck. But I like the tempo that it gives you as, oh, okay, yeah, I don't need these cards. I'm gonna get some different ones.
Another thing I don't just noticed about the art is that the penguins in the foreground are. I thought they were just like oil slicked or whatever in terms of their sort of brownish sheen, but that's just the heat of the fire.
Closer to the incinerator.
Yeah, it's just the red light coming ominously from off screen.
Yeah. Oh, Anthony Hutchings knocked us out of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
for sure.
and that's
Um,
good in case this card does end up being part of an archetype that everybody hates. That like at least the art is nice.
yeah, it's true. You will, you'll,
But
you'll.
yeah, sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
But like I think it has more potential than that because like yeah, like it can be a rushy card, it can be a combo enabler, it can do so many different things. It can even just set up your. It lets you stealthily put cards in archives, which if you're into Regenesis, or you're replicate no Corset Jinteki.
Restoring humanity.
Yes, if you're a Restoring Humanity deck, you like. Neat card.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so this is from the Team Covenant stream. The last two were both up on the Null Signal Games website. I think it sounds like Team Covenant may have just finished. Obviously, most of you, well, if you don't know who Team Covenant is, they're some of the most prolific content creators for Netrunner all time. I will try and remember to put a link to their stream in the video when you're watching this on YouTube later. And if you're watching live, I would go and check their YouTube stream later. They had a lot of fun. I would really strongly recommend the stream. We've got another Jinteki card, which is Hafrun. Hafrun. I don't know if there's a pronunciation guard. This is Hafrun is a 2-cost, 3-strength ice barrier code gate. So it's got 2 types on it. And then it says, when you res this ice during a run against the server, you may trash 1 card from HQ. If you do, choose 1 installed runner card. That card's abilities cannot break subroutines for the remainder of that run. And then it has a single subroutine end the run. And then the flavor text being, Hafrun has lived through generations of changes in the net, and now there are whispers that something from the deep is making it anxious.
Whoa. We should mention the lore behind this card.
Should we talk about the clam in the room?
Yes. We absolutely should. I only know this because Zeroth Maxima posted about it on Slack, and I'm glad he did because Hafrun is the name of a 507-year-old clam that we found. It was the oldest ever discovered animal whose age could be precisely determined per the Wikipedia page that I'm looking at right now. And we did accidentally kill it when we were looking into it.
How
But
human of us.
yeah. Well,
That's the saddest thing about this story, but it's actually the most appropriate for Jinteki.
yeah, and specifically, Isuak, like in terms of their like, they're bringing back mammoths. They're like, yeah, we got what? Who else would we have? And this is probably the ancient past for them, so it's not as much of a downer. They're probably not thinking of, oh, we recently killed this in 2006. They're like, oh, those idiots in the 20th century killed this clam. We're bringing it back on the net.
Also, someone in chat asked who the artist for this is. This is Jack Reeves. So it's not Scott Uminga, though I have heard that Scott Uminga will be back for cards in this set. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anyone. But this is another fantastic net space piece. I'm glad we're getting a really nice roster.
Yeah, and Jack
of artists.
Jack Reeves did all the Jinteki ice for the rest of Midnight's, or all the like net space Jinteki cards for Midnight Sun, and did all the net space criminal cards in System Gateway. So like Tread
Very
Lightly,
cool.
Carmen, Marjana, that's all Jack Reeves.
Very cool. I'm gonna see. I forget if they're just a null signal game. While I'm doing that, I'll let the two of you. I see some people talking about this card in op, but I think this card's got a lot of different potential uses. Like to some extent, this is a decent way to slow down on endurance. Maybe not the best way, but a way you could slow it down at least.
Yeah, I mean, like, and yeah, notably, the last card we looked at had 3 influence, which is a little bit hard to splash as just like a role player. 2 influence, you can play that. Oh, Infinite Nightshell, great point. It's a code gate, so you can get it for free with Ivik. It's another barrier for Jinteki. And yeah, I think there's certain things that this stuffs a little bit better than other things. Endurance, it does a great job against. Paperclip, it does a really bad job against if the paperclip is in the trash. There's an interesting line where if you're Anarch and you're playing Standard and you're playing the Conspiracy Breakers, you might install another Black Orchestra to get when your first Black Orchestra gets turned off. It does. Does it work against Boomerang? I think so.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting card.
Yeah, I think one of the things like it's obviously like, oh, it's just for the run, so it's not that, it's never gonna win me the game because whatever. And I think it's really easy to say like, oh yeah, I'll just spend another click and run back. But like so many games are like, oh, I have to actually get in on this click, or like I'm accounting for them spending a border control, and this costs a lot less tempo than a border control does for Jinteki, and it doesn't cost them influence either, which I think is quite an easy to miss part when thinking about how this is going to fit in the card pool.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. I think it's interesting because it sort of fits these two different niche places. I think in one case, if you want to rush, it's a 2-cost and the run ice. It's not bad. I think especially in Jinteki, they seem to be sort of out of hard end the runs that don't cost a lot. But I think what Jeff brought up is really interesting. The fact that you can keep it as surprise res in a run that matters, and maybe installing it sort of early on in the game and not resonate until you really need it when the runner has already gone through a few taxing pieces of ice, and running back again in the same server is just not feasible anymore. We're really relying on the last few boat counters to get in. So I think it's an interesting card. I'm wondering how much play it will see outside of Jinteki. I'm not sure. I agree that 2 influence seems very splashable, but I struggle to see what archetype would play it.
Yeah, especially, I mean, like we were talking about op with it, and if you play it with op, you also have access to border controls for less influence. Whoa, Hafren Cold Sight combo. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is only two. Oh, that's a good point from Infinite Nutshell. We're talking about border control, like everybody has access to it. You don't have access to border control in startup, and this
True,
is
true.
like
That's true.
this can be a real run ender um, in startup, and you can start playing that sort of click taxation game that Jinteki is so good at, like with Nissan Mark II, where you say, "Oh, did you think you had enough clicks to get into the server? You're one short. Actually, you didn't account for it." Pretty neat.
Cool. Well, I think like yeah, I think this card obviously is going to have some downsides as well because you're going to feel the code gate barrier where this is whatever's easiest for the runner to break, they're just going to break it. And in the end game, it probably doesn't do a lot. Though I think there's some interesting ideas where you can be like, hey, you know what, the runner can get through this, but they, maybe the ice behind this is a sentry. And so I'm just going to turn off the sentry breaker, and they have to spend some time doing that kind of stuff. So I think this is a little support card. We'll see. I've seen some people being like, "Oh goodness, what if I play this in op and I like the runner is about to, encounter an archer and I res a Mavirus, trash the Mavirus to then search my deck for this one for half rune, and now I get to fire my whole archer, and I'm like, cool. You
That,
spent
that
how many slots in turn? Like I don't know. I think it's
that sounds up my alley. I want to do that.
but
That sounds
it
great.
sounds fun. I think
That
it'd
sounds
be
amazing.
uh,
I guess the one last thing I want to say about this card is the actual Heffron was over 500 years old, and I don't know if Netrunner's set more than 500 years in the future. So just think about the firewalls and protection you have on your computers today. Heffron could be the digital Heffron is probably alive right now.
yeah.
Inspiring.
I also want to Ixaron shouting out. It's also a really good anti AI card, where you get
Nice
to
call.
yeah.
Yeah.
If the runner is really dependent on one breaker and that's how they're planning to do everything, then hey, that's how it's going to be. Um, let's see. Let's move on to so that's actually it for cards that were spoiled today, but it wouldn't or actually no, there's one more card spoiled today, but I want to talk about two cards that were spoiled previously that I think are thematically linked in at least somewhat tangentially to uh, the other card that was spoiled today. So I'll start with a criminal card called Concerto. It's a run event, 0 cost. Reveal the top card of your stack and place credits on this event equal to its printed play or install cost. Add the revealed card to your grip. Run a server. You can spend hosted credits during that run. And Roslevet's Concerto number 2, Breakneck, Brilliant, Enchanting, the perfect finale for Virtuoso.
Is this a fictional concerto? I'm having trouble googling it, and I don't
I
have a lot of.
believe it's a real concerto.
Okay, I gotta listen to it before I play this card.
Um,
Um,
because I remember this card getting spoiled, and okay, it's Violin Concerto number 2 by Roslevets,
cool.
um, 1936. It looks like.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, there was someone at Worlds who was like was super into the choice of this concerto, which I was like, okay, that's someone has put a lot of thought in, a lot more thought than I have into this, and that's why there's people doing other stuff.
Oh, if you, the person who wrote that, or who, if the person who said that is listening now, please say more about it. I want to hear about your enthusiasm for this choice. I love it.
Yeah. But what we, this was also, I was interesting when I talked about the Team Covenant stream earlier, which again, if after the stream is done, go back and watch it. It was a lot of fun. Um, but they were like, super pumped for this card, and I think a lot of us kind of looked at this card and went, I don't know. So I think it's really interesting to talk. It'd be interesting to talk a little bit about why we would look at these cards, why you could look at the card in both ways. So
I am also super pumped about this card. I'm so happy about this card. When I started playing, the combos I most wanted to build around were there's this card called Eureka, which lets you reveal the top card of your deck and you get the card for way less. And this is a more playable Eureka. It has a better and Eureka is so fun. I love that card so much. You can play gigantic icebreakers. You can do whatever you want. And this card, the fail case, if you totally whiff, you reveal something that has a play cost of 2. You get 2 credits and you get the card. It replaces itself. Concerto, and you get a run out of it. It's so good. I love this card so much. I'm so happy. I can't wait to play it. Stimhack doesn't draw you a card. It does quite the opposite. Concerto gives you a card.
Yeah, we just gotta find a 9-cost card to play with Concerto.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah, I think one of the reason that I think that's a great summary of why to be really excited about the card. I think to be a bit of a what is it, a damp towel. Like the downside is, when I'm making my Netrunner deck, often one of the things I'm doing the most is trying to cut that cost curve down. So it's like all of my cards are 0, 1, or 2, or 3, and then you're like, okay, well this card's starting to look like it's a dirty laundry or something like that. But there's a lot of reasons that, and a lot of setup tools in Criminal that people are talking about. Pronostic Q Loop, Paragon, and all those sorts of stuff. So
I think it's an interesting card because it in order for it to be reliable, or in order for you to be relying on this card, it's not as dependable in a way as an overclock or a stim hack, where you can run and make sure that you're going to get through, unless you do a lot of work ahead of time, a lot of preparation, which is, I think, very flavorful for criminals, but also it sort of informs a little more your play style. I don't think this is a card that you're going to play as a replacement for overclock in criminal. I think unless you either build your deck with a lot of very highly costed cards, or you play Paragon or Q Loop, where you actually have knowledge on what's on the top of your deck. I find it's not sort of a solution to all problems like other run events that give you money to spend on the run are, which I think it's interesting. It's a rethinking. I do appreciate the fact that, as Sanjay was saying, like worst case scenario, you get a few pennies and you draw a card. I think at that point, if you're playing it just for the sake of drawing a card, it probably will just occupy a slot in your deck, and that isn't great. But it's always, I think, if your deck is built so that this card can make sense, you can always, worst case scenario, play it and gain a card, maybe a better card out of your deck.
Yeah. Shadow Electric pointing out that the worst case is you just find another concerto, but then try another one. And if that one draws a concerto as well, the next one will definitely not draw a concerto.
Yeah, I'd say that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, get about. Also, if you're a fan of Edge and Christian as a tag team, this is a nice card for you. That's a little reference for my.
That one goes over my head. I mean, people, yeah. There's definitely, I think, Infinite Nutshell calling out, there's no other run event that replaces itself unconditionally. Anarcho Mushroom, big fan of that reference, Sanjay. Okay, yeah, you saw it in chat. Maybe I should have the chat up on the right side of the window here or something. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Just as a log.
Me and our Anarcho Mushroom are having a nice moment here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll save it. Maybe I don't know if I can convince Andre to do another ranking every card in Netrunner, but maybe, or in Parhelion. Maybe if I do that, I'll give a little spiel on why I think Concerto's overhyped. But I think it's good to let the card be exciting today. Let's move on to another exciting card. And actually, I pulled up Eureka earlier, but this is really the Eureka comparison card, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's talk about this card first. I'll pull up Eureka. Yeah, I think actually I will do. I'll set that up in a second. But yeah, Spark of Inspiration, 3 cost mod event in Shaper. Set aside from the top of your stack. Set aside cards from the top of your stack face up until you set aside a program. You may install that program, paying 10 credits less. Shuffle the set aside cards into your stack, and then the best ideas float to the top if you give them time. Archimedes Jar.
I think the me who was building Motivation Eureka combo and playing Angel Arena just so I could Eureka better deserves this, and you're welcome to that person. Yeah, this is so good. I mean, I'm so jazzed about this. 10 less. You can pick really big numbers. That's great. And if you only have gigantic programs in your deck,
Oops.
you always hit. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely one way you could be like, hey, what's the biggest 3 programs I can put in my deck and grab it. So
Yeah, Femme Fatales, Angola isn't that big. What else is big? Mass Driver. Mass Driver isn't that good, but it's big. Yeah, Rip Morningstar is absolutely right. Now, Fem's okay, but it's a shame there isn't like an in-faction, like gigantic Sentry Breaker that you could get a nice discount on. That would be cool.
That'd be so good.
Yeah, if only. Oh, also, who's Archimedes Jar? That's cool. Anyway.
Yeah, I will very quickly just for the reference, we'll throw up Eureka and look at how much better this card is than Eureka in a kind of comical fashion. Basically every single element of this card is stronger. So some real power creep there.
It doesn't trigger Power Nap, and it's 2 more influence. Basically unplayable. Oh, of course, Archimedes and Eureka. Thank you, Infinite Nutshell, for pointing that out. Of course. That's really good. Nice job, No Signal Flavor Text team.
All right, let's go on to the payoff card that is the other card spoiled today, which is of course Orca, our 10-cost program that you might be looking for. So this is a icebreaker killer. The first time each turn this program fully breaks a piece of ice, you may charge one of your installed cards. Add 1 power counter to a card that already has one. It says, then interface 2 credits, break any number of sentry subroutines, 2 credits plus 3 strength, and it has a base strength of 3.
I love this. Seba, talk to me about Orca.
I find this well. Okay, we just saw sort of 2 reasons why you should play Orca. One is Concerto, getting 10 credits on your run, and Orca in hand in Criminal, a faction that plays with cards like Credit Kiting to help you shave off the cost of this enormous program. Is it good? I don't know. Seems like fun though, so I think I would do that. I find it interesting that I think when I saw the art, I really thought this card was going to be a weird rethinking of Darwin, but it's actually maybe closer to Leviathan in terms of the way it functions. I like that thematically this fun little Orca goes side by side endurance and helps it charge. I think that's a very sort of, it's a very expensive card, but it's a very understated effect. The first part of the text of this card, charging cards while you're doing already what you need to be doing, which is breaking ice and getting into server, seems like a good extra little bit of bonus. I think this is going to be really hard to install, sort of hard install, of course. Who has 10 credits in a world without Rezeki, Rip, Orb? But I think pulling this out of your Spark of Inspiration, Dig, where you find this card, seems like winning the lottery.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Is this card good? Who knows? Also, who cares?
Yes.
It friggin' rocks. It breaks everything. It does weird things that you like. Charging stuff, unexpected gifts, unexpected times. Gives you 10 credits when you hit it with a concerto. You know what? What if you have a Q loop and there's 2 on top? Reveal the first one, play the other one for free. Bam! This card's incredible.
Yeah.
2 Mew, figure it out. It'll be fine. I love this card so much.
Also, you don't have to play with boat. I think sure you can play with endurance fine, but that card already costs 8 credits. I think playing this card with propeller and hyperbaric, and just being able to charge +2 was like, that's what you should be doing. Don't play boat.
Absolutely.
Just
Yeah.
charge the breaker you need.
Yeah. This is good. And Ellen did the art. Yakuza, knocking it out of the park again.
Oh my God.
They banned his Rozeki, but can't ban the Orca. You could, if necessary. I don't think this card's getting banned. Also, this card's ridiculous, and it's only 2 influence. Play it in all your decks. No problem. Criminal Concerto decks, Shaper Concerto decks. How much influence is Concerto? Like 1, 2? You play it in Sunny. It's perfect.
Yeah, and you should play quickly in Sunny. I think she's gonna be around for much longer.
Yeah, I think GS Shrike M1 would be feeling really disrespected if you play Orca in that deck. But still, yeah, trash it to Emergent Creativity. Get to install anything. Absolutely. Oh, Emergent Creativity, also a Eureka effect. Absolutely. Putting a 10 in that top corner is so delightful. I wish it cost 15.
My goodness, that's maybe a little further than I would go, but I think it's sort of where I'm gonna very briefly be boring for a second and say, like,
yeah, please.
Like, if you can get this card down, it breaks most things pretty reasonably. Now, like, you'd hope so at cost 10, but you never know with these sorts of cards. Okay, we'll see how that looks, everyone. Chat's on the end. But it's like, oh, if I'm thinking, like, it's good against really low strength sentries, for example, and if we can find anything that, like, if there's any more charge payoff cards, because I think people are kind of pointing out, like, yeah, endurance, you don't. It's weird to think about what the marginal value of an endurance counter is when you've just installed a 10 cost, a 10 cost program. Like, you're probably doing okay if you can afford to have 18 credits worth of stuff on the board. But if we find any other payoff cards, and I think, like, Propeller and Hyperbaric are, like, definitely potential models there. But I think I'd want to look for, like, maybe even something like Environmental Testings, like, kind of in that range too. Like, these cards were like, oh, I can charge it and get some extra value out of the cards that I couldn't normally get out of. Like, this starts to look kind of interesting and means that if the corp put low cost barrier or sentries in their deck, like, they become a pretty active liability. Now, there's a lot of ifs there. There's like 6 or 7 ifs. So, it's maybe not going to be the card that takes over the world, but it's definitely a possibility. So, I don't know.
Yeah, good shout from Shushu that not only is this card expensive, it is the most expensive program ever printed.
Yeah, is this really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Best we've had previously are Torch and Femme Fatale at 9.
Wow. All right. So this card is the reason that Eureka has a 10 on it, I guess. Or maybe the other way around. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. That Spark of Creativity having 10 on it is like a little bit of like, prior to this card coming out, it's like, okay, thanks for helping me get around Dockland's crackdown, maybe.
All right, we've got 2 more cards that were from pre-spoiler season proper. Should we move on to those?
Yes, let's get bad.
All right. Should we start with the borehole first?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I just moved the wrong image. All right. Super deep borehole. It is a 6 to res, 6 to trash asset, illicit industrial. And it says when you res this asset, load 6 bad publicity counters onto it. When it is empty, you win the game. When your turn begins, take 1 bad publicity from this asset. And then the flavor text, they just keep drilling down no matter what. Valentina Ferreira? Um,
Something I really love about this card is we've always talked about take 1 bad publicity, but we've never asked where are we taking it from. And I think it's really cute that you're taking it from the super deep world. It's such a good rules joke. I mean the card does other stuff, but it's so funny. I love that about this card so much.
Yeah, I do love that. Like, we were like, when this card was in playtesting, we're like, oh, rules is gonna have to come up with a really different way to word this, and then we like pass it over the rules. We're like, no, this works, and
Yeah, I mean, let me double check. Like previous cards, like Hostile Takeover, didn't say take the bad publicity from the bank. It wasn't like just so
no,
you know, if you're looking where to get the bad publicity, it's from the supply. Don't like take it from like one of your other cards that have. You know, actually, it doesn't say where to take it. I'm playing a Hostile. I'm gonna take it from Super Deep Borehole. Nobody told me I couldn't. I'm pretty sure a rules update that No Signal is gonna put out tells you you can't. But until then. Until they tell you can't, take them from the super deep portal. Don't do it.
um, and people in the chat calling out this is the character from Anarcho's lore from the op reveal back in the Midnight
Oh,
Sun spoilers. So it's a fun cross pull.
that is a good call.
Yeah.
Um, Seba, what do you think about this card?
Yeah, the fact that this card says you win the game is, I think it's mind blowing. When I saw this card at Worlds, it took me I think a while to process what was happening. I think this is extremely interesting. I think it's great that No Signal Games decided to give us this card in the same set where Penal Threaten comes. Otherwise, I really think this would be a terrifying card to deal with. I think this card looks really, really scary in the outfit, of course. The fact that you can drip 3 credits a turn just by having this card installed seems a pretty good sort of counterbalancing fact to the 6 to res cost, which is pretty steep. But if you're
Yeah.
already
Just for in case there's someone who isn't super familiar with why we'd be saying you're dripping 3 to res, this is the idea that we're all thinking about when we think about this card. I don't think this card probably sees like I think the startup players are like, oh bummer, I got 1 fewer card in Parhelion, because this card is really made, I think, for outfit. Where this just says, oh yeah, I'm gonna drip for 3 a turn. I'm gonna load it up on bad pub, and I promise you, I'm gonna get more out of it than you. So.
Yeah, I really do struggle to see it have play. I think sadly the only ID in startup that I could see use this is Earth Station, which is going to be rotating.
Ooh, good call.
So that is a little sad.
Oh,
Um,
right.
yeah. What I really appreciate in terms of like design of this card, what I find fantastic is that yes, it does put a timer on the runner. It basically is telling the runner, hey, you have 5 turns to deal with this, or I win the game. Do something about it. But at the same time, it's giving the runner ammunitions in terms of that publicity. Every turn, it's making it cheaper for the runner to make smart runs. And so I think in terms of the runner gameplay, what's going to be vital is finding the right time to be running this card. I think finding the sort of sweet spot where you're not rushing to deal with this card before it is too late, but also not like early enough that you're caught with 6 credits less, which again is a trash cost, which is very, very steep. So I find it fascinating in that respect. It's sort of like putting a ticking time bomb on both the runner and the corp. And if you trash this, after the corporation has taken 5 bad publicity, you will have 5 bad pubs for the rest of the game. Especially in a ID or against an ID like the outfit that is probably going to have ways to rack up other bad pub throughout the game. I find the design of this card really, really interesting. I'm really fascinated to see how it will play. I agree. I don't think it will see any play outside of the outfit. The 1 bad pub a turn seems like a very, very tall cost of this card.
I'm a little skeptical that even in I feel like I think part of my brain when you're like, oh, you can't play this card in anything but the outfit. Like I don't think you can play the card like in the outfit either. So you might as well play it anywhere. I feel like this card is not a thing like, hey, here's a card to help your deck. This card is a dare. This card is saying, hey, I dare you to win the game with this card, and I actually really like that. I think this card is probably for my taste, like running the show a little bit too much. Like Super Deep Borehole is like, hey, listen to me. This is what we're doing, and I wanna have more of my own agency. But like, I think this card is like super cool, and it's like, hey, I bet you can't win with Super Deep Borehole. Like everyone now has this cool challenge of winning a game with Super Deep Borehole. I love it. It's daring everybody, and yeah, like, oh yeah, how do you clear bad pub in startup and in standard?
Well, in standard, you have 2 different cards, right? You've got increased drop rates,
yeah,
and then Roughneck Repair Squad. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, okay, here's a weird take. Can you play this card if you're playing the outfit and you're rich like nobody? Can you just play this card as a distraction? You just throw it on the board and you're like, okay, you deal with this. Meanwhile, I'm going to win the game another way.
I think that's kind of a plausible way. We're like, hey, I'm going to put this, and you're not going to deal with it turn 1, right? Because, like, you've only got 1 bad pub, and eating 5 to trash this, that's not going to happen. And now a turn passes up, makes a new remote, installs a piece of ice in that remote, and then you're like, okay, well, that's probably a 3-2. That's an Atlas. I got to go deal with that. So you go and deal with that. And now it's turn 3. Suddenly, they throw down 1 more piece of ice protecting the Super Deep Borehole, and now you're like, oh shit, I got to find a breaker real fast. And all of a sudden, you're maybe looking at this world where, like, yeah, I ignored it for a little bit, and now time is tight, and I'm kind of forked between which way I want to go.
I think if you can throw this card out sort of sneakily early in the game, which I think you probably can do with the outfit, if you score a hostile takeover early on, if you're playing your too big to fail early on, you're gonna be like, you're not gonna be too pressed for money. Throwing that very early on, I think 5 turns will go by really quickly for the runner while they're trying to set up. And so, in a way, throwing this giant wrench in their plan while you keep doing things that allow you to win the game might be the way to go.
Yeah, I think also. Oh, go ahead, Sanjay.
Oh no, go ahead. You go ahead. I was gonna say something stupid.
I was gonna start throwing us to the next card, so I'll let you get your comment in first.
Oh yeah. So my stupid comment is that I know somebody in the chat said that if you drill from both sides of the earth, you can have the boreholes touch. No single game's not talked about how deep the borehole is, but it does not go to the core. You cannot touch that. There's no plausible way. Just from a lore perspective, this is going maybe into the mantle at best. Like no, even if it's super deep, I don't care. Just don't mantle at best. Like the core is too deep, too hot. Even if we can bring the mammoth back. We can't get to the core, not yet. Just saying.
Yeah.
I really want someone now to make an alt art of Super Deep Borehole as a rethinking of the creation of Adam by Michelangelo with the 2 boreholes that sort of touch each other.
Oh.
I mean, you've got one of the premier alt art creators on the call, so I feel like
I know I'm throwing it out there, knowing that Sanjay will pick it up immediately.
Oh, also just like Super Deep Borehole, it'd be fun to recontextualize it as just like somebody being really bored. Wow, Super Deep Borehole, and just somebody talking your ear off. So, but I guess I have one concern about Super Deep Borehole. Like, let's say I get 5 bad pub, right? And you trash my Super Deep Borehole. Like, basically, I just took all that bad pub for nothing, right? There's like no reason that's like if you're the corp, you don't want bad pub, right? It would just be bad to have it,
I
right?
mean, it would be terrible. Like, there'd have to be some kind of payoff card for bad publicity, and like, FFG never printed one, and so like, it's never gonna show up in the card pool. By the way, here's another card that got spoiled. Um, I went. Thank you, Sanjay, for giving me such a nice throw, and then I just go and like jam that joke into the ground. Anyway, this
Never
is right.
never printed a bad pub payoff as if
Yeah.
success NAPD contract combo didn't exist. Wow, rude. Anyway,
All right, this is regulatory capture. It is a 6-2. I think that's a stat line. Wait, no, that's mandatory upgrade stat line, isn't it? Hold on.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
to, just for those of you who are a little bit less familiar with the entire history of Netrunner's bad card pool. This is, I think, the only other 6-2. Oh, is Jumon a 6-2?
Jumon, yeah.
Jumon.
yeah. I will
And that
say
one-
I like
That one
I
might
like
even be
regulatory-
relevant
yeah.
soon.
I like regulatory capture. This is my least favorite 6-2 because 6-2s are all friggin' rad, and this card is no exception.
Yeah, no, this card is definitely rad. So it is a 6-2. It is a research agenda. For each bad publicity you have, up to 4, this agenda gets -1 advancement requirement. And then this was a criminal offense. Now it's an option for business.
That quote specifically is a quote from a UK politician who, not to get too political, sucks. And yeah, so that's
Yeah.
like pulled from. It's like I think if you're from the UK, that even might hit a little close to home.
I know it's one of those things where it's like if this wasn't a quote, it would be too much to write on a flavor text. But it's a nice little snapshot of a moment in time that will now be forever immortalized in this children's card game.
Now, what is regulatory capture from a lore perspective?
I mean, I think honestly, it's going to be a lot like regulatory capture in the real world, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. What is that? I don't know.
Oh, okay. So, regulatory capture is basically often what happens when you're looking at like a regulatory agency is they need experts who know about the field that they're working in. And often the people that know a lot about the field they're working in are people that are working in the industry that's being regulated. And so you end up where all of the regulators either have worked for or are in some ways working for the have worked, will work, or sometimes even do work for the industry that they're then also serving as regulators for. And so you just basically it happens a lot, and there's like arguable cases where it's good, or where it's like not totally, like it's not like a completely bad idea in all cases all of the time, but it often ends up pretty bad. And I think this is kind of a case where it's like, yeah, we don't know who's going to regulate how you drill a super deep borehole. Let's talk to the Wayland people that drilled super deep boreholes because they know a whole lot about drilling super deep boreholes safely. So
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'll also say from a lore perspective, the artist Win Lacabra previously did Artificial Crypto Crash and the 3 throwback connections, the artist, the Class Act, and the Nihilist. So some pretty good work, I think, by them. Glad to see them back here.
Yeah. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the beautiful alt art for Predictive Planogram was one of the prizes for Worlds, right?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah, this is sort of the. Oh, sorry.
No. I was just saying that was a good poll. I wasn't even aware of that when I'm on OP.
Now, an interesting thing about this card is that the cap at 4. So this at best can be a 2/2 agenda, which is the sweet spot insofar as then you can fast advance it with no help whatsoever. It doesn't get better than that, which is actually, from a rules perspective, probably kind of good. Like, I think some things get a little screwy when you have 0-2s. I mean, Blood in the Water is a 0-2,
I was
but
about to
it's
say
okay.
we already have some context for a 0-2s. Yeah,
I mean, don't play Eternal with Plan B on the top of the deck. Brought it up again. Yes, 2 Plan B mentions in one stream. I did
oh
it.
my goodness, Sanjay, he's incorrigible. Um, yeah. No, this is. I think it's interesting. You know, this does have an obvious comparison point to Blood in the Water, um, and I think it's sort of interesting that this one, like, I think arguably a reason this one has a limit is because the runner, I think, classically has basically zero control about how much bad publicity the corporation takes, outside of a couple of really bad cards from Spin Cycle. Um,
Yeah, I think a turn where you go like Atlas counter, get a capture, install, score, get another one, install, score would be super stupid.
yeah. Yeah, Shishu is calling out activist support, which I think is Sansan, but maybe I'm wrong. Or sorry,
Oh,
not
yeah, yeah,
Sansan,
yeah.
but Spin. And it's True Colors, which I'm pretty sure is Spin. Let's go. I remember the bad mechanics that FFG tried to put in Anarch this cycle. Uh, yeah. The Spin was the let's try and make bad pub a thing, which was an idea that they dropped sort of, but not quite correct. Not, not quite all the way.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, a little bit as a FFG defender, I will say that like they were always very careful, and like the people designing Netrunner now, No Signal Games, like have been learning from the years and years of Netrunner design, where FFG was like, hey, like what is right? What are we doing? And like we're
yeah.
the beneficiaries of all that. We know that we can go a little harder on bad pub, and I think this card is it's pretty hard. I like it.
Yeah, no,
I love me a 2/2.
for sure. It's definitely fun to dunk on FFG for being like for doing silly cards that didn't really do anything, but for sure we have all benefited from learning what does and maybe doesn't work as well in Netrunner. So
Um,
Yeah, I think sort of to talk about how this card will fit in the game. I think this is sort of the perfect sort of plan B. Sorry, to not the card, the actual plan B. Um, if you are playing in your outfit your super deep borehole, and you're like, well, if that gets trashed, I at least get my 2/2, and I can score that, and I can do that while the runner is trying to deal with super deep borehole. I think this card seems really, really good in the outfit, even without super deep borehole. I think I would be surprised if this card was. It's basically another 3/2 at least after turn 2 or 3 for um the outfit, which seems pretty good.
yeah. Related to that, I think one of the downsides of regulatory capture is that Wayland didn't especially need another 3/2. You can place 7 in your deck.
Wow.
Um,
hey,
now
now I can
if
play 10.
yeah, that's actually that's true. That adds up to 20. So
Yeah,
I
like that is
mean,
something of a meaningful jump.
you play this entire yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's like it'll be interesting to see. I think this makes outfit gonna gonna have a real kind of triple threat where it's got this. It's probably got still hard hitting news kind of kill plans, and then it probably can pick some other third threat, and maybe that's going to be borehole. Maybe that's going to be just like gear checking. Like you could plausibly like build your deck with like one fast advance card and 3 regulatory captures, and you'll probably be able to fast advance at some point in the game, score behind ice at some points in the game, and threaten to hard hitting news boom them at some point in the game. And the runner has to be ready to adapt to all 3 different threats, which is a real like classically that's when Wayland's been really good is when they can do those sorts of triple threats. So
Yeah.
Yeah, a 3/2 or a 2/2 is also a nightmare to clot against because they could audacity it with no advancements on it. terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives Outfit a lot of different options in terms of like how they add up their agendas, like up to 20. Like usually it's 3 hostiles, a bunch of SDS drone deployments, maybe some send a message, but like you oftentimes just have like 2 points left over. Sometimes you play Atlas. It's tricky to build Outfit. I'm not an expert on it, but like another option is cool and exciting.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I'm hearing dinner getting finished up in the other room. That is the last of our cards we have for today. So I think we will call it a show. I want to thank both Sanjay and Pouchsurfer for coming on. It's been great to have both of you. Any closing thoughts you want to put on the day?
Thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed this. I'm thrilled to see what's going on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is fun as always. This is my only my second spoiler season, and I have just come down from the excitement of the previous spoiler season. So it's wonderful that it's starting all over again.
Oh wait, hold on. I forgot though. I have a very important announcement, which is that Sokka will be streaming tomorrow at 1 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. UTC. So about an hour and a half before I will start my stream. And he will be doing spoilers for his set of cards.
Oh, lovely.
So
Nice.
that's keep an eye out for that. It will probably get added to the schedule. He posted it in GLC. But yeah, that once again that's 1 p.m. PST or 9 p.m. UTC. So please do check that out. He's it's I think it'll be a fun set of cards, and we'll have I think something else. We'll also have I forget. I actually haven't read the announcement that Manverupt put up, but we will have some cards from Null Signal as well. So it should be a fun, busy day tomorrow. I think I'm gonna have Thike from Design and Doomrat from Playtesting on tomorrow. So we'll have a fun chat about that whole process. So, but yeah, thanks so much to both of you for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching. And I will see you all tomorrow. And maybe one day I'll actually keep these to 45 minutes. But today was not that
Sorry.
day, and I had a lot of fun going long, and I always do. Today was certainly no exception. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks once again to my guests, and hope you all have a good night.
Bye.